Hey guys, this is Tyler. Welcome to Vitriol Reviews. Today I decided to go through my physical fiction books and just kind of show off my physical TBR, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to actually read a lot of these books. Some of them I got just because they were recommended, and quite frankly, I'm not that interested in them. Some of them I got from my grandfather's collection when he passed away. And there's just a lot of random stuff here, a bunch of fantasy, sci-fi, and classics and all sorts of stuff. So we'll just go through a bunch of them, and if you see anything that you would like me to read, just let me know in the comments. And then maybe I'll hit one of those earlier. So I guess first I'll go over some books or series that I'm probably not going to go over on the channel just because I've already started them. I'm already 3 books into this series, and I have the next 5 books in Jim Butcher's Dresden Files series. Summer Night, Death Masks, Blood Rights, Deadbeat, and Proven Guilty. I've only read the first 3 of these. For me, these are just pure entertainment. They're not like anything special or anything, but they are actually just super fun reads. There's something you can read while other things are going on, and it won't really matter. It's just really fun, entertaining stuff. It's stuff you could read in a bathtub or on a beach or, something like that. Just something really simple, something as a palate cleanser, basically, before you read something else that's a little bit more in-depth. You can just read one of those and reset your palate, I also am just constantly randomly returning to this. I'm like halfway through it. Grimm's Fairy Tales. So I just, every once in a while, I'll just go to it, read one of the fairy tales and come back to it. So I don't think I could do a proper review on that. Same with The Complete Chronicles of Conan by Robert E. Howard. Again, I'm like a little bit over halfway through this one. I'm really enjoying the Conan stories, actually. They kind of very much tie into a lot of Lovecraftian type stuff. And they're just, again, really, really fun little short stories. And I really enjoy it. But again, I'm like halfway through it. I don't think it would be fair to do a review now, having not been taking notes or anything like that on the previous half of the book. Okay, I'm also reading currently the Chronicles of Narnia. I don't have that with me around me on the floor here. That's also why the lighting is terrible, is because I'm just sitting on the floor. But yeah, so the Chronicles of Narnia is another one. And also I still have 2 books left to read of the Earthsea books. But again, I'm probably not going to review those because I would feel it would be unfair not reviewing the 4 previous books of that series. But I don't know, maybe it's up to you guys. If you guys want me to do that, let me know. If you don't let me know, then I just won't do it. And then after the Chronicles of Narnia, I would like to get to Ringstones and Other Curious Tales by Sarbon. This is the Tartarus Press edition of this. They do beautiful books, beautiful editions. It's the hardcover. If you are into horror, if you're into weird fiction, if you're into H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe or Arthur Machen, I would recommend looking into this company, Tartarus Press. I highly, highly recommend it. They make beautiful editions of books. So this will be the next one after the Chronicles of Narnia. I'm just going to leave those over there because these are just really nice copies. The Sound of His Horn and Other Stories by Sarbon. Again, this is very similar. They all have ribbons. And these ones all have a similar style to them. All of his 3 books have a similar style to the hardcover. And finally, The Doll Maker and Other Tales of the Uncanny. I'm not going to be doing this for every book, but these Tartarus Press books are just so gorgeous. I have to show them off and give credit where credit's due. Then we have 3 more Tartarus Press books, this time Arthur Machen. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce his name, but that's how I've been pronouncing it. Now these ones, the hardcover is quite different. Gorgeous books. Just such high quality material, high quality paper. This one has some of his more famous works, like A Fragment of Life, The White People, The Great God Pan, The Inmost Light, and The Three Impostors. So I've got that to look forward to as well. I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I've only read one. I've read the Penguins Classics collection of Arthur Machen stories, so I've only read that little bit. And now I have 3 volumes of his work to get through. The Hill of Dreams is here. Again, just gorgeous. Gorgeous books. And finally, The Secret Glory. And this one, I was really shocked when I first saw this hardcover. Just, it's absolutely gorgeous. So, please, if you're interested in horror or weird fiction, supernatural type stuff, I highly recommend checking out Tartarus Press. They have ebooks and paperbacks as well as the hardcovers. I just am a huge book nerd and really like the hardcovers, even though I can't really afford them. All right, what else do we got here? I would like to get into this right after I read that first Sorbonne volume, Don Quixote. I never read this, and I am actually really looking forward to reading it. I read the first chapter a little while ago just to see what it was like, and I was instantly hooked. So I would like to actually sit down and give it the time of day, because I was already reading something else at the time. I just wanted to see what it was like. So there's that. I have Thomas Pynchon's The Crying of Lot 49. This was in Harold Bloom's How to Read and Why. I'm halfway through that book, actually. When I started this channel, I was halfway through that book. I read through all his recommended short stories and poems. So I'm just starting the novel section now, which is why Don Quixote's next on my list. However, I'm not gonna, review all the stuff that I read previously to it. But this was on the list. I have Fever Pitch here. This isn't actually, I don't think this is actually a fiction book, but it was in my pile because somebody I look up to had it in one of his lists, many lists of recommended materials, whether they be books or music or TV shows or graphic novels or what have you. This was actually another one that was on his list, The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. Don't really know what exactly this is about. The title sounds interesting, but really I'm just interested in it because of who recommended it, because literally everything they have given me has been a hit. He's why I got into John Crowley and Little Big. He's why I started to really focus on trying to get a hold of Arthur Machen material. So there's that. I have King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. I just saw this in a bookshop when I was with my mom at the trailer. It was just in a random used bookshop. It was like $2 or something like that, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm picking that up. I'm only familiar with it because of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, to be honest. Alan Quatermain. I have the first two books of the Wheel of Time series, The Eye of the World and The Great Hunt. I have not read this series. My dad really liked this series. And it's a TV show, so I guess, you know, why not? I have Chuck Palahniuk, Adjustment Day. I read all the novels he wrote previous to this one. I have not read this one, and I think there might be another one he wrote after this, or maybe more that I have not read either. But I have this one, and I just haven't read it. Super Sad True Love Story by Gary Steingart. I got this when I was in a creative writing course that I didn't finish because it was stupid. So I don't know if I'm going to ever read that or not. My Legendary Girlfriend, don't really know, but I have it, so. The Silmarillion, I have this version of it that had like a CD, there's a map and all sorts of stuff. Here's the actual book. I still haven't read that. I loved The Lord of the Rings. I loved The Hobbit. So I just have to sit down and actually read The Silmarillion. And we have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I have not read this. I'm actually really looking forward to reading this. I don't know why, but it might even just be the cover. The cover is just gorgeous. And I love when books do this shit. Don't know why. There's no real reason to. It's kind of impractical, but I like it. Then we have J.D. Salinger, The Catcher in the Rye. I have not read this book. It's a very short book, so I'm looking forward to just breezing through this one, to be honest. I've heard good and bad things. I've heard it's a good book, but I've heard it's way overrated as well, so I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. Then we have The Trial by Franz Kafka. I've not read any Kafka, but this one was recommended to me, so. Then we have a collection of Mark Twain books. There's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, The Prince and the Pauper, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, and The Tragedy of Pudd'nhead Wilson. So I have not read any Mark Twain before, so I'm looking forward to see why he was looked at as such a great writer. And we had the same thing with H.G. Wells, 6 novels by H.G. Wells. The Time Machine, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Invisible Man, The War of the Worlds, The First Men in the Moon, and The Food of the Gods. So, like, I'm already familiar with 4 of those stories, right? Like a general idea of 4 of those stories because they've been turned into many different forms of media throughout the years. So it would be nice to see the origins. What do we have here? These, I believe, are all poetry collections. Random poems of yesterday and today. There's all sorts of just random stuff in here. I believe that was gotten from my grandfather's collection. Pretty much all of these really old looking ones are. Anthology of short poems for senior students, New Horizons. We've got Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. Don't know. I do want to read this. Charles Bukowski, Love is a Dog from Hell. I have not read this collection of poetry. Then I also have this, Library World of Poetry. William Cullen Bryant is the editor. It's just a pretty large collection of poetry. I'm pretty sure it's separated by subject matter, so poems of patriotism and freedom, poems of peace and war, poems of nature, poems of sorrow and adversity, that sort of thing, so that's kind of interesting. Then we have, I believe this is a play, Pygmalion, Bernard Shaw. I'm familiar with Bernard Shaw, but I have not read any of his poems. I only read something Aleister Crowley wrote in relation to him. I have A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. Again, I'm familiar with the story, but frankly, it's mostly from the Simpsons episode. Robert Bolt, A Man for All Seasons. I honestly don't really know what this is about. I have it. And then this is Plays by Richard Brinsley Sheridan. So these are just a collection of plays, I suppose, by Sheridan. And over here, I have this first book in this series. I honestly don't know if I'm going to get to this series at all. The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. I heard a lot of bad things about the ending of this series. And honestly, it's just something that doesn't really appeal to me. I don't honestly know why I have it. I must have just gone on some sort of shopping spree at some point, but I have it. I don't know if one of you guys highly recommends it, then maybe I'll take a whirl at it. Then I have the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson. This just seems like it's kind of funny. It involves conspiracy and occult type stuff and all sorts of things like that. So it just seems funny to me. We'll see if I ever get to it, because again, there's so many books. The books that I even have in this physical TBR aren't even close to being all the books I want to read, and most of the books I want to read are not in this physical TBR. So that might just give you an idea. I have 3 books in this series, the Gentleman Bastard series, The Lies of Locke Lamora, Red Seas Under Red Skies, and The Republic of Thieves. I heard good things about this series. It seems interesting to me, but we'll see if and when I can get to it. Same with this series here, the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie, The Blade Itself, Before They Are Hanged, and The Last Argument of Kings. It's supposed to be like a grim dark fantasy series, so I don't know. So far, grim dark fantasy series haven't really been my cup of tea, just because they tend to be basically the same to me. I don't know. Then we have the first book in this series by R. Scott Bakker. I got this a long time ago when I was looking up Canadian authors, just because I'm Canadian and I haven't seen many good Canadian authors for myself. If you have any recommendations, let me know. But it's The Darkness That Comes Before, The Prince of Nothing, Book 1. It's supposed to be like a very philosophical type of fantasy series, so that's why it kind of interested me. Then we have Stephen Erickson, Gardens of the Moon, the first book of Malazan. Apparently it's a crazy world building type of story, but it honestly, I don't know. We'll see if I get into it. It's apparently super hard to get into anyway, even if you want to read it. And I'm not really particularly sure I want to read it, because I don't know. Nobody's really given me a reason to want to read it, other than saying like, oh, it's really cool world. It's really intricate world. That's not enough for me, you know? I mean, there might be more than that to it, but that's all that people give me to work with. I have the first book in the Mars trilogy, Red Mars. I heard, I just got this because it was on one of those lists of good sci-fi, and it was in like the hard sci-fi section, so I was just curious what that genre was all about, and you know how good it was. This was in a similar vein. Why I got this, Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I heard a lot of good things about this. I believe this is also a series of like 4 books or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Well, this book's gonna spoil one of the other books I have unread. which is Dune. This is Dune Messiah, the second book. I only have the first two. Dune is somewhere in this pile of stuff over here. There it is. May as well just get rid of it now. There's Dune. I still need to read Dune. I really want to read Dune. I've heard so many good things about Dune from a lot of people that I respect, so I definitely want to try out Dune at some point soon. What else do I got? I got Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card. I have not read that. It's, again, the first in quite a long series from what I understand, although they're broken up into different trilogies and things like that. I have Salem's Lot, Stephen King. The Stephen King I have read hasn't been the greatest. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not good either. You know, it's entertaining. Then I have The Man in the Iron Mask by Alexandre Dumas. I would like to read all of Dumas' stuff, or not all of his stuff, but all the stuff that's in this similar storyline vein. I just find it kind of interesting. I used to watch a lot of those movies growing up, The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers and things like that. I also have this random pickup from a random store in Toronto. I just really like Leonard Cohen, and it's a novel by Leonard Cohen, Beautiful Losers. I have not read it. It seems to me like it's one of those ones that reads very strangely, like a lot of like experimental writing from the 70s, like or 60s or whatever. Like, I have this book, Tarantula by Bob Dylan, and this was essentially a stream of consciousness novel. It's extremely strange, but it's a fascinating read, very, very short read. If you like Bob Dylan and you like weird experimental writing, I would check it out just for the hell of it. But yeah, so Beautiful Losers, Leonard Cohen. Then I definitely want to read these stories. G.K. Chesterton, The Man Who Was Thursday, and Father Brown. I've just heard a lot of really good things about Chesterton, so I'm really looking forward to reading these, actually. Then I just have this random collection of Marquis de Sade's writings. Justine, Philosophy in the Bedroom, and other writings. So I randomly picked this up at a used books shop that used to be in town, that is no longer with us, unfortunately. Then along those same lines, I have The Libertine Reader, Eroticism and Enlightenment in 18th Century France. So this has similar materials in here. Dangerous Liaisons, The Indiscreet Jewels, The Story of a Modern Greek Woman, On the Education of Women, The Sofa. So I have no idea what's actually, any of this is actually going to be about or anything. But that's kind of the fun of it. I have this random collection that I believe was in my grandfather's stuff of criticism of Shakespeare. We'll see if I get to that. I would like to get into Shakespeare. I feel like the education system really failed me in regards to Shakespeare. So I would like to try my hand at Shakespeare. And if anybody knows of a way that can help make Shakespeare more accessible, not in the sense of some dumbed down version of the play, but in the sense of somebody who can help guide me through reading Shakespeare, if there's a good book of good commentary on Shakespeare or something like that that can actually help me get into the flow of it, that would be great. I have these. There's also another one around here. So I have these versions of Isaac Asimov's Robot series. Got I, Robot, and Caves of Steel, The Complete Robot, and the rest of the robots. I believe there's still a couple more in this series that I don't have, but I ordered these specifically from Amazon UK. because they're just way better covers than the shit that we have here. Just straight up, I much prefer these covers. I originally saw this cover and picked it up in a store in Toronto, but the only other place I could find it was on Amazon UK. So, and I also have Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles. I'm also looking forward to reading this. I really enjoyed Fahrenheit 451 or whatever it's called. I really enjoyed reading that, and I believe that was a Ray Bradbury story. There's actually a few Ray Bradbury stories that I would like to read, but this one I have, so I'm looking forward to getting to that. I'm also looking forward to getting to The Dispossessed, because this is a Ursula K. Le Guin novel, and I really enjoyed the 4 novels of the Earthsea series that I have read so far. I really enjoy how she writes and what she has to say. I have this Sir Walter Scott, Rob Roy. Picked that up just at some random used bookstore. Then we have a few books that are kind of falling apart that my grandpa had that I don't know anything about, and I'm not going to take the time to flip through them to figure out what they are. Hard Cash by Charles Reade. If any of you know what any of these are, just let me know, by the way. Louisa Broadhurst. I don't think this one actually has an author. I think it says by A.M. This one definitely doesn't have an author. The Lady of the Decoration. And it's just falling apart, as you can see. We have Summer Fun and Frolic by Isabella Pearson. Randomly, The Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Persig. The Curse of the Kings by Victoria Holt. Reader's Digest Condensed Books, Trial, September, The White Puma, and Mrs. Polifax and the Whirling Dervish. Then I have a few versions of the Iliad. I just have a Dover Thrift edition. I have this literally translated Iliad from Bond's Classic Library. And then I have a translation by Richmond Lattimore of the Iliad. I don't know which one I'm going to read. I don't know if I'm going to read any of these versions as my first version of reading the Iliad. I read it a long time ago when I was younger, but because it was so long ago, I really don't count it. It was like very, very early high school or just before high school. So same with the Odyssey, which I have Dover Thrift edition, and I have a children's version of the Odyssey, which I do remember reading a similar version to this. I don't think it was actually this exact version. Then got Virgil, the Aeneid, or however you say it, I don't know. And Ovid's Metamorphoses. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. I have not read this. I believe my sister had to read it when she was in school, and she said that it was weird. So I'm looking forward to it. Yes. Le Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I used to love all King Arthur stuff when I was growing up. I read a lot of different ones. I have a kid's version of the King Arthur tales right here. I really liked King Arthur and all things related to King Arthur, including Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Anything King Arthur, I was into it. One of my childhood movies was The Sword and the Stone, the Disney version of this next book, The Once and Future King by T.H. White. The Sword and the Stone is the first book in this series. I believe it was originally released as separate books, but I could be wrong about that. but it was The Sword in the Stone, The Witch in the Wood, The Ill-Made Knight, The Candle in the Wind, and The Book of Merlin. Then interestingly, on the back you have J.K. Rowling saying Harry's spiritual ancestor, and Neil Gaiman saying as good as anything anyone has written. As good as anything anyone has written. So you got Neil Gaiman saying that, which a lot of people really appreciate, and J.K. Rowling, who, again, a lot of people appreciate, but I'm not particularly one of them. However, it would be nice to see what she considers to be the spiritual ancestor, and most likely a superior ancestor at that. So I've got those two King Arthur tales. I also have Bambi by Felix Salten. I've not read that. It seems like a pretty short read. I also have Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Books. I have read one other Rudyard Kipling book, Kim, which I actually really enjoyed. It was a really good book. Not anything like The Jungle Book, but good nonetheless. So I'm really curious to see what this is like, given the fact that I watched, obviously, the Disney Jungle Book, but for me, my favorite was the live-action Jungle Book that I believe John Cleese was in it, and Lena Headey was in it. I can't remember how to pronounce her name. Then we have another book that was recommended by a person that I really look up to, and that is The Mouse and His Child by Russell Hoban. This is children's literature, and quite frankly, I'm really excited to read it because I've already read through the first 2 paragraphs, and I loved the writing style of it. It seems like this is going to be one of those things that's going to be close to my heart, but we'll see. I'm really looking forward to this. It might, in fact, be one of the first books that I do. I might do it right after Don Quixote. We'll see. I also have Bullfinch's Mythology. I've read a bunch of different mythology stuff, but I have not actually read through Bullfinch's Mythology. So I'd like to get to that at some point. I have a collection of Clark Ashton Smith stories that I'm really looking forward to. Again, this is in the same line as Arthur Machen and Sarban, the Dark Eidolon, and other fantasies. I'm really looking forward to reading this because I haven't read Smith yet, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he has to offer. I also have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne. I have not read this. I am also looking forward to that because I am familiar with Captain Nemo and the Nautilus and all that stuff, again from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Same thing goes for his other works, Around the World in 80 Days and 5 Weeks in a Balloon. I've just heard a lot of good things about Jules Verne as far as writing adventure stories go, so I'm curious to see what he has. Then Andre Norton's Stargate. I don't remember exactly why I got this. I believe it was recommended in some book on writing fantasy, and there was a whole list of different fantasy authors to check out and sci-fi authors to check out, and Andre Norton was one of them, and I just picked this one up. We also have the entirety of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in a trilogy in 5 parts. I'm looking forward to reading this. I did enjoy the movie, and I just haven't got around to reading it yet. So that's another one. The Rules of Attraction. I had actually bought this for an ex, and then when we broke up, she just left it. So then we have Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I'm really looking forward to reading this book because I grew up with Jurassic Park, the movie, and I was always obsessed with dinosaurs. I used to have a giant, a thick boy book on dinosaurs that came with a one of those 3D glasses with the one red and the one blue glass, and there would be a bunch of different pages, and you could 3D see a bunch of dinosaurs and stuff like that. It was super cool, and it had a bunch of facts, like, I mean, littered with facts. It was the biggest, the most dense book on dinosaurs I still to this day have ever seen, to be honest. And it was just one of those Scholastic Book Club books. So I'm really looking forward to reading Jurassic Park. Here's a bunch of short stories. May as well go into some of these. I have Isaac Asimov presents the Great Sci-Fi Stories, number 13 from 1951. I already read a couple of these stories, I believe, and the couple that I did read were really interesting, so I'm looking forward to diving into this. I have Novelties and Souvenirs, collected short fiction of John Crowley. I love John Crowley. I love his writing. I've already read a couple of stories from here. I just really love his writing, so I wanted to check out his short fiction as well. So there's that. And I also have his other piece of short fiction, And Go Like This, stories by John Crowley. So I would love to get to those. I also have short stories by Guy de Maupassant. I've read at least one or two of these when I was going through the first half of How to Read and Why. And I really, really, really like his writing. I really, really like it. So I'm really looking forward to diving into just an entire collection of his works. I was really impressed with the way he writes. Really impressed. Then I have this collection of short stories edited by George R.R. Martin and Gardner Dozois or some shit. Rogues. It's a pretty big collection with a bunch of people in there. Joe Abercrombie is in there, Scott Lynch is in there, Patrick Rothfuss, Neil Gaiman. I got this just honestly because of the story in it, The Lightning Tree by Patrick Rothfuss, because it is part of the Kingkiller Chronicles world. It's a short story about Bast. It doesn't really give anything away or anything like that, but it's just a fun little story. So that's the reason I got it. I've already read that story. I have not touched the rest of it as of yet. Then we just have a book of good stories. Brilliant Stories, The Graphic Reader. A book of better stories. Then we have Ursula K. Le Guin, The Wind's 12 Quarters, a collection of her short stories. Again, I really liked her work in the Earthsea books, so I grabbed this. Then we have a treasury of short stories. Pretty big, thick collection of short stories by a whole bunch of different people. Rudyard Kipling's in here, Balzac, Hemingway, all sorts of people. So I'm also really looking forward to this, and just pretty much anything that's a big collection of short stories I'm looking forward to, because it's going to widen the scope of how many people I'm able to read and see what kind of writing styles jump out at me, and then I can deep dive into some of those writers a little bit further. And that's always fun to me. Same thing goes with this giant collection, The Big Book of Science Fiction. Huge collection of short stories, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. So I'm just, again, really looking forward to this. It's got short stories by Asimov, Le Guin, Bradbury, Wells, Philip K. Dick, just all sorts of people in here. So Big Book of Science Fiction. And we have Fredericks Forsyth, The Day of the Jackal. They turned this into a movie, I do believe. I'm pretty sure Bruce Willis was in it, and Jack Black, funny enough. I believe, if I'm thinking of the right movie. My grandpa really liked this book. He specifically told me that he liked this book. It's one of the only ones that I collected after he passed that I actually knew that he enjoyed reading. So I kind of want to read it just for that fact, even if it's not great. Then I have the first book in the Expanse series, Leviathan Wakes. Again, this is one of those ones I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to enjoy or not. We'll see. I have a couple random comic books as well. First, Boys. Watchmen, I still haven't read for some reason. And V for Vendetta, which I also still haven't read for some reason. Since I went through those graphic novels there, I may as well touch on some of the manga that I have. I didn't grab the entire collection because I have 10, the first 10 of these omnibus editions of Lone Wolf and Cub. Again, this was recommended by that person I really look up to. I just need to get that there's only 12 omnibus volumes. I have 10, and the last 2 are extremely difficult for me to find. And right now I'm broke, so even if I was able to find them, I wouldn't be able to afford them. However, what I have, the little section that I have read and then stopped because I couldn't find the last 2 volumes, was really, really good. Fascinating story that's been turned into different forms of media and has inspired a whole lot of different media. Even Final Fantasy takes some stuff from this. If you played Final Fantasy X and you know Yojimbo, very based on this. Then we have Vinland Saga. I have not read volumes 11 and 12 yet, so I just have to read those. I do really enjoy Vinland Saga. It is quite an interesting take on this kind of a story. So I'm kind of curious where it goes. Then we have The Epic of Gilgamesh. Again, I read this very early high school and I would like to just reread it. It's a very short read, so. Then I have Zanoni, A Rosicrucian Tale by Edward Bulwer Lytton. The reason I have this in my collection is this is actually one of the recommended books by Aleister Crowley in one of his reading lists. So I would really, really like to read this. It seems very, very interesting. It's a Rosicrucian tale, so it already catches my eye, even if it wasn't on Crowley's list. And I believe I also saw somebody else reference it somewhere, but I don't know who it was. Then another one from Crowley's list, Rabelais, Gargantua and Pantagruel. This is also mentioned by many other people throughout my readings and whatnot, so this is one that I definitely need to get into. And I also have it up on this shelf, even though I haven't read it, just because I have a double copy of it. I found this randomly, and it just looked gorgeous. It's got the ribbon and everything like that. Really nice paper quality, so I just wanted to buy that just to have it. But I will be reading this version first because it does come with notes and such, so that some of the satire and political events of the time won't go entirely over my head. Then we have The Complete Poetry and Prose of William Blake. I've read a few Blake poems, but not nearly all of them. Not nearly all of his writing. This is a thick, thick boy. But I really like what I have read. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. Again, that was Crowley's reading list. Same with this. J.K. Huysmans or Huysmans, I don't know how to pronounce shit. I'm an idiot. The Damned or Labas. Again, on Crowley's reading list. This is, from what I understand, this is essentially like one of the origins of the typical view of like the Black Mass, the Satanic Mass type of thing, where you would, you know, the big extravaganza that it used to be seen as. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that's where this came from, or this is where that came from. I could be wrong though. Again, another Crowley recommended, The Amber Witch by Wilhelm Meinhold. So again, looking forward to reading that. Anything that was recommended by Crowley and anything that was recommended by the person that I kind of look up to in regards to taste, those are like immediate. I really want to read those. Same with anything that's on Harold Bloom's Western Canon list. I really want to read that stuff as well. Speaking of which, we have The Complete Works of William Shakespeare, which was on Crowley's list as well as Harold Bloom's Harold Bloom is obviously a huge fan of William Shakespeare, and I might look into getting some of his books on William Shakespeare to try and maybe see if they can help me connect with it more. And we have Red Gauntlet by Sir Walter Scott. That again was one of Crowley's recommendations. And W. Somerset Maugham, Complete Works. This is just, I only have this one volume from the Complete Works, but this one contains The Magician and Gentleman in the Parlor. The Magician is a story that contains a character named Oliver Haddo that is heavily based on Aleister Crowley. Then we have Complete Illustrated Lewis Carroll. This is quite a thick book. I have read Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and I'm pretty sure I also read, what was the other one? Hunting of the Snark or Jabberwocky or something like that. Anyway, that's all I've read. So there's still quite a bit of Lewis Carroll to read and explore. And I also, this was another one from my grandpa's collection, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse by Vicente Blasco Ibanez. I have no idea what it's about. The title's interesting. Then I have 3 more books by Walter Scott: The Antiquary, The Pirate, and St. Ronan's Well. So I got those. Moods by L.M. Alcott, Louisa May Alcott, I would assume. So there's that. Then I have Agatha Christie. There's 2, looks like there's 2 novels in this collection here. Sleeping Murder and Murder at the Vicarage. I have yet to read any Agatha Christie, but I would be curious to see what it has in store. Oh, that's another... There's a book out there that I did not grab. It's a thick collection of all of Sherlock Holmes. I've only read A Study in Scarlet. I have not read any of the other Sherlock Holmes, so that's also on the TBR. Then we have The House of the Seven Gables by Hawthorne. I believe it's Nathaniel Hawthorne. Let me just check so I don't look like a complete idiot. Yep, Nathaniel Hawthorne, The House of the Seven Gables. It's a familiar name. It's a familiar title. I don't know anything about it. Then we have Alan Moore's Jerusalem. I know Alan Moore. I like Alan Moore. I have not seen his novel writing capabilities. I have seen his graphic novel work. And this is a thick, thick boy. Like a thick boy. This is just over 1,200 pages. So it's quite a bit. I'm curious to read it though. It looks exciting. Again, I've read a few stories of these, but this is the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. My Sherlock Holmes book is the exact same as this. Same style of book. Just Sherlock Holmes. Then we have the short novels of John Steinbeck. Now, John Steinbeck's interesting to me because I really, really liked Of Mice and Men when I read it. But I was forced to read Grapes of Wrath in school, and oh my God, that was boring as fuck. That book sucked. So I have no idea what to think of John Steinbeck. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood. Maybe I had a bad teacher. Well, I know for sure I had a bad teacher, but maybe that's why I didn't like it. We'll see. I would like to read more Steinbeck and reapproach Grapes of Wrath at some point in my reading life. Then we have some more Reader's Digest condensed books. The Eagle Has Flown, Aspen Gold, The Ice, and Lightning in July. And another one, Heartbreak Hotel, The Closers, The Ladies of Garrison Gardens, and Julie and Romeo Get Lucky. Don't know if I'm gonna honestly read any of these Reader's Digest ones unless you guys see one of those titles is actually good or something like that. I don't know. Again, there's too many books, too little time. Anthony Adverse by Hervey Allen. Have no idea what this is. Zero idea what that is. And I'm not going to take the time to look. Then we have Dante's Divine Comedy. This giant version of it with illustrations by Gustave Doré and the translation by Henry W. Longfellow. I love this edition because the artwork is just phenomenally good throughout it. And to go along with that, I actually have this, William Blake. This is his artwork, which I love William Blake's artwork. So when I do read through the Divine Comedy, I'm going to read through it alongside this, just so I have multiple images to go with my reading experience. Then we have Goethe's Faust, Part 1 and Part 2. There's Part 1 and Part 2. Really looking forward to that again, because of the familiarity I have with the story and the fact that I have read the very opening, I can't remember what they call it for these things, the dedication, and that was in and of itself very compelling. So I'm very interested to reading that. In relation to that, I also have Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. This is the 1604 version edited by Michael Kiefer. So I have that. Then I have a collection of Victor Hugo's works. It's got this like wax stuff to protect the actual book. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff in here. I believe this even has, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is in here. So the only thing that I'm familiar with of Victor Hugo's that's not in there is this book that I have right here, which is all very, very dusty because it's all just been sitting around. But Les Mis. I've got this giant version of Les Mis. And they have these cloth fronts. Their back's very interesting way of doing them. And then before we get into the final stretch, we have Madame Bovary by Flaubert. That's another one I'm interested in reading because that's another classic. Then finally, we have Dickens. We have most of Dickens. There's some books that are missing, but I have this Dickens Complete Works collection. They're all the same cover. But I have Great Expectations. We have American Notes and Pictures from Italy. We have Old Curiosity Shop, Volume 1 and Volume 2. The Pickwick Papers, Volume 1 and Volume 2. David Copperfield, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Oliver Twist. A Tale of Two Cities. This is one that's missing. I have Bleak House Volume 1, but there's no Bleak House Volume 2. So I'm definitely missing that one. Then I have Nicholas Nickleby, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And finally, we have Christmas Stories, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And Edwin Drood, Master Humphrey's Clock. Edwin Drood and Master Humphrey's Clock. Or Lock. So, I believe that is the entirety of Yes, that is the entirety of my unread fiction. That's my physical TBR in regards to fiction. There's also a shelf over there that is nonfiction works that I have yet to read. Um, so maybe I'll do a video of that at some point, possibly, but at the moment I'm going to try and focus on fiction, so we'll just leave it at that. Um, it's a super long video, but it is what it is. If you were interested and stayed around for the whole thing, let me know in the comments below if there was any particular books that you saw here that you would like to see me read. Or if there's any books here that you absolutely hate and would recommend me not to read, that would also be helpful. So yeah, just let me know. And I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me going through a whole stack of books. Thank you.